minutes to an hour to complete, which you would never see if you played through the critical path of the game only.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of extra depth in Darksiders 2, which led on top of the new loot system, the leveling system. We have an experience in leveling system, stats, and everything else that players can manipulate to kind of change how their play style, the game to their play style, really makes Darksiders 2 a much bigger and more in-depth game than its predecessor.
With the engine improvements you guys made, was it difficult as far as scaling that to the hardware and stuff like that? For obviously, anytime you improve something like that, it's definitely more taxing on the hardware side.
Well, they actually made the engine to work with first-party hardware.
Okay.
That's actually why Vigil was formed. Like,
gotcha.
4 guys: Ryan Stefanelli, Dave Adams, Joe Mad, and Marvin Donald. They were working on PC games before, and they wanted to work on console titles. So that's why they created Vigil. That's why they took the big risk. That's why they started Darksiders. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Translating the engine for a console wasn't a huge deal.
Gotcha.
You got to think as well, Darksiders 1, a lot of the work that's done by a team on their first ever game is making that engine and working out how things work, working out how to code something to work in a certain way on a console. All of that work was done for Darksiders 1, and the engine was an incredibly good engine. We actually saw parts of that engine underpinning some of our other sort of THQ titles as well. That was a lot of the combat system in Space Marine, which was one of the points that I think everyone agreed was one of the strongest things about that game, was actually driven by the Vigil engine.
For the record, I think there were a lot of strong things about that game. For the record.
Oh yeah,
check it out. If you missed it, check it out.
But I damn near backhanded him right there.
Definitely one of the strongest points of the entire game was the combat system, just how fluid it was, the motion, and that was a version of the Darksiders engine kind of brought forward sort of by those guys. Now we've got a second game. The studio's been focusing 100% just on making content and making the game they wanted to make. So you'll see improvements in graphics, improvements in gameplay, improvements in scale, because their focus is on the game rather than on making the technology work.
Right.
So,
kind of paved the way with the engine already. Now they can focus on the...
Exactly.
Well, yeah, normally, like, the sequel is, like, pretty easy. You can pretty much just, copy and paste over a lot of mechanics you did before, especially, like, a lot of the systems for your protagonist. But we didn't do ourselves any favors with this one by switching from more to death. Yeah. Completely different combat animations, completely different systems with traversal. Like, it is literally like developing a sequel and a new game at the same time. That's why this is going to feel like as dissimilar and similar as it does to the first. It's going to feel like a new experience, as opposed to a lot of sequels out there. I won't name names, but a lot of them feel like a 1.5.
Right.
You can name names, man, if you want. I'm just kidding. I don't want to get you in trouble. We'll name names.
I've got a few on the
slip me a note of the names you want to mention, and I'll talk about them.
We'll protect the innocent.
Yes, right here. We've been talking over like the cutscene here. And
I feel bad for the audience. This is like the dramatic moments and the beats and just the ambiance that this creates is amazing.
Should we agree to be silent during the cutscenes then? Because
I kind of did intentionally to not do spoilers,
Okay, yeah.
Wait, this is a familiar face.
This is war.
Brother versus brother.
Oh boy.
What's going on?
And this actually gives us a really good opportunity to showcase the differences between Darksiders 1 and 2. You'll see, obviously, then with this first boss fight or first mini-boss fight, fighting against the protagonist from the first game, gives players the opportunity to see how War's he's this slow, lumbering, powerful character, and then how much more agile and how much faster Death is. So it really gives you a great opportunity to showcase Death's newfound agility against his brother in combat.
Yeah, definitely see the
contrast. Do you know, Simon, in the lore, which one is the older brother and which one is the younger brother?
Death is older.
Death is older.
He's the oldest of the Nephilim. That's their race.
There's basically, to really summarize the lore in a really quick format, the Nephilim are a race created. They're part angel, part demon. They weren't one of the natural races. They were actually artificially created. And there's first generation and second generation Nephilim. The first generation Nephilim are more powerful, and they're the originals. There's a very small number of them. Death is one of the first generation. All of his siblings are second generation.
Ah.
So he's older and more powerful.
And so there's a primary weapon and a secondary weapon.
Correct.
there's different play styles for that secondary, or depending on the weapon you're using. There's fast attacks if you've got sort of a Claude or Cestus type hands, right? Versus a big polearm type thing like a glaive or a hammer. Which do you guys seem to prefer yourselves?
Traditionally I play a lot of shooters and a lot of action adventure games, so I'm more of like a running gunner. So I thought I would like the bucklers and like the quick attacks, but actually after playing it a ton, I love the axes and hammers. I like the long swings, the powerful damage, and I like that you can combo it up with your scythes as well. So that's where you see a lot of those Reaper form attacks, really cool stuff. That's what I use.
I think when I was playing through the game myself, I probably spent the first 50% of the game using a heavy weapon. And it's important to note as well, the heavy weapons are actually all completely different in their play style. So a hammer or an axe plays differently to a spear or a glaive or one of the other types of heavy weapons in the game. So they have different moves, different animations, different combos. So there can be a lot of variety between one type and another. But I really like the hammer, I really like the axe. But I think actually when I got about midway through the game, I started using some of the light weapons a lot more, and I found that I really like the claws and the fist weapons because their ability to chain those bows together and being able to kind of throw those light, quick attacks in between enemies' attacks and also in holes in their defense was really useful against some of the enemies later in the game who block a lot or use shields. So depending on your play style, you can chop and change between them quite a lot, and I think I found myself doing that playing through the game.
Looks like we just bitch slapped the Crowfather.
Yeah, that was incredible right there. That was awesome.
So
I've played that a few times.
That was our first section of the game. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump into a section midway through. This is actually from the second zone in the game. It's from the Kingdom of the Dead. You'll see a completely different visual style. Everything's new art. Vigil don't make an easy job for themselves. They redesigned each zone from scratch. So this is midway into the second zone, and it's an area called the Judicators 2. You'll see basically as we start, there's another one of these 2D animatics. As I mentioned earlier, they'll explain where you got to in the game. I'll skip past it so we don't spoil things for people.
I do like this stylistic touch here where the menu turns into the camera for the game. It's great.
It's really cool.
So where we're at the moment is Death needs the help of the Lord of Bones, who's kind of the monarch of the undead. But he needs to get that. He needs to basically reassemble the King's Court. And this is the tomb of one of those court members, a guy called the Judicator, and he's sent Death out to find souls for him. He needs to judge these souls before he can return to his duties. So we've just, the save point we've just loaded, we've actually just brought one soul to him. So we're going to hand that soul over to him, and then he's going to send us off to find another one. And when we found all of those souls, that's the point when he'll be able to sort of join Death and sort of come back to the Dead Court.
So this is a pretty cool section because it's going to show off a lot of puzzle solving. You know, a lot of like the new traversal for Death as well. So you'll see a lot of different traversal elements. And then what we call mini bosses. Are these mini-minis or mini-mini-mini?
Yeah, that's a good question. Vigil will call all of their basically anything that isn't sort of 13 stories tall is classed as internally classed as a NOS, which is like not a boss, is what they like to call them. So we're going to see a few NOSes, and then a few large enemies who are the ones who are deemed too small to even be.
Take a look around at the vistas, dude.
Wow.
So you see, like everything's like massive in scale, you know.
Wow.
I get in the habit of doing this because once you pick up the pistola, you know, you're shooting down the stones.
Getting the rune stones.
And the stone bites, which is one of the collectible quests. Yeah, there's 3 different types of collectibles you'll be able to find in the game. They're theoretically, maybe even 4. There's 3 main types. There's stone bites, which are the stones you're mentioning, Book of the Dead pages, and relics. But there are also, you'll find scrolls, which will give you solutions to a maze that's hidden in the game later on as well. So they're kind of the 4th one, and why I hesitated a little bit on if there were 3 or 4.
Right.
So here we're fighting some undead prowlers. These are similar to the prowlers you see in the first zone of the game, but they're actually completely different in terms of their animations and their attack patterns.
Yeah, I see they're hopping around laterally a lot more than the original ones.
Getting that combo.
And you'll see executions similar to Darksiders 1, where you'll get that B prompt and you'll be able to perform a quick execute on an enemy.
And the executions build more wrath, which lets you unleash your super dupers.
Yeah, we'll
more
use a
often.
super duper in a little bit against a bigger guy. So you can look at like Death right now. So we just saw him in the first level and he was basically like skinned down. Like we didn't have any gear yet. Now he's level 15 in the second major zone of the game. So you can see like all the different armor he has on. His sides are really cool. They have flame properties by the looks of it. So basically, like if you and I play Darksiders 2 an hour into the game, we're gonna have completely different deaths.
Yeah.
Like we'll tailor it to our own playstyles, like we were talking about before. We'll find completely different gear. There's no way to find the same gear. A lot of it's just randomly generated. So in one playthrough, you're not gonna be able to get it all. It's gonna
Except
take
for the legendaries, right?
Yeah, the legendaries will be in the same
legendaries are all on.
place.
They all have their own fiction. They all have like stories behind them, how they came to be, what they're for. It's pretty cool.
And these guys are kind of big enemies. They're champions, but they're not boss characters. And actually, I think I've probably got some skill points to spend as well, so I'll equip some skills after we beat these guys.
If you don't die first, dude.
I'll try not-
You
I'll
might
try
want
not
to
to.
press left on that D-pad.
Is there a magic item or a talisman or anything that prevents you from that last push over the mortality line? Or 'cause I found
there
one
isn't.
that is a slow rebuild effect. It's a slow regen effect.
It is, yeah. It's not an instant heal potion. It's a heal over time. So before this next guy goes, actually, I'm going to pop into here and I can show you the menu system. So here's all the loots we've got. I'm using a pair of possessed sides at the moment that are equipped. We have loads of other items we've picked up. You can see instantly sort of what's better by if it's green or red on the stats. A really quick read on that. So we've got all of our loot system. If we jump through into our skill system, yeah, you can see actually we haven't spent most of the skill points yet for this level. So each time you level, you'll gain a skill point, and you can spend those on abilities. So
Yeah, I love my ghouls, man. I love
Yeah,
the
me
ghouls.
too. I use the necro side. So just like conversation before, like me being more of a running gunner, I thought I would use Harbinger side, but I spec out my entire necro side and just call in the ghouls, call in crows.
Yeah, that's
get
the
everything
thing.
doing the
Playing
work
on
for me.
apocalyptic, you're going to get your ass handed to you sometimes,
Yeah.
and having those couple of guys to distract the baddie
Yeah.
is really helpful.
They'll help in like boss fights too, because like they'll turn their back to you, and then you can get them from behind.
Holy
Oh,
shit.
look at this guy.
So
This guy does not look happy.
This is a Nos. He's one of our sort of small boss characters.
This
I'm
is
just going to
not
give
a
myself
boss.
a little bit of.
This is certainly a boss by most
I think in
people's
almost
standards.
any other game, this would qualify as a boss, but not in Darksiders 2, huh?
So you'll notice that my ghouls, I can kind of summon those in to
This guy
attack him. He
owned.
dealt with them pretty quickly, but
Wow.
But you can beef him up as you level up, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Looks like he's got some serious indigestion going on. The
Yeah,
acid he's spewing out.
This guy
Oh.
probably doesn't have the best body odor either, so
Yeah,
you probably
you're
don't
right
want to
on that
stand too close to him.
I can't tell if it's a goiter or an arm.
Someone get this guy some axe.
Let's call some more ghouls in. And so those guys, they can give you a little bit
Okay,
of
now using
a little bit of time, so you can get ranged if you want to. You can
Stripes
use
pistol he's using.
That's awesome.
some of your ranged weapons against him, or you can close gaps quickly with some of your melee moves.
Melee is melee for Americans, just so you guys
It's
know.
funny because no, I say it both ways.
We parked in a car park as
Yeah,
well.
they make fun of us in the comments
Yeah,
either
I-
way you say it, so don't
I
worry about it.
regularly have to repeat myself at work because people don't necessarily always understand what I'm.
Melee.
The best is going through a drive-through and having them order a Coke, and they just can't understand what the heck he's saying. They have no idea. They're like, oh, what? We don't carry that. He's like, no, yes, you do. It's on the menu. I've ordered it here before. Sorry, I won't make fun of your accent anymore.
I think
okay,
it's beautiful. I like your accent.
I'm used to it.
At least for a half hour.
Till we're out of here.
Kill
I
him.
can hang. I grew up on Monty
thought you-
Python, so
That was my bad. I thought he was dead then.
Simon just got himself trapped. No, he's not.
Is he dead now? Yeah.
I got myself stuck between a fat guy and a wall. Hate it when that happens.
I am not going to say that's what she said.
Okay, so now we're going to use a unique item you get in this zone. It basically lets you summon the Dead Lords that you've sort of found already. So at this point, we found one. So we have this guy who'll help us out. He basically can be used to help you fight, but also you can send him to do things. So for example, I've highlighted a switch there. I wouldn't be able to get to that switch myself because it's through a gate, but because he's dead, he's able to pass through those things, and it gives me the ability to trigger that switch and traverse around this wall using these newfound pegs to
He'll
help me
also
out.
make the bed and do dishes for you too.
Nice.
Come in handy.
There's all kinds of just
Oh,
housework.
you got a legit scythe, dude. Pick it up.
Brutal.
Yep, I've got those ones. And then also, the other great thing you can do with him is if you run out of wall, you can jump and you can grapple to him. You can use him as a grapple point.
So both of those are special abilities that you'll get at the end of like a major dungeon. So that's Death Grip right there.
Yeah, I've
Helps
been
a lot in
seeing those
traversal.
all around.
Yeah.
Not really sure of how I was going to traverse.
It's cool. Death Grip is my favorite because you can use it like in traversal, but you can also use it in combat. So like big dudes, it'll pull you towards them, and smaller guys, you can yank them towards you. And
It's a great
care of
way
them.
of getting enemies who are blocking off their guard as well, pulling them off their feet and sort of opening up an opportunity to really
What did you
lay
say
down
those were
some
called? So
damage.
that companion, what's his actual like? He's a
So he's the Farseer. He's
Okay.
one of the Undead Court. We're doing missions at the moment for the Judicator, who's the second one. So once we finish this dungeon, we'll actually get the Judicator, who'll help us as well.
okay.
And here you see him, like how useful the ghouls are actually in sort of big combat encounters. You can use them to kind of lay waste to large numbers of enemies while you focus on one, or you can even use them to tank for you with big powerful enemies.
Okay.
We found epics.
you got a health potion back there, dude. Grab it.
Oh, I missed that.
By the way you're playing, you're
Good
gonna
spot.
need it. In case you haven't noticed, I like to bust on.
Well, we just met you guys. Otherwise, we'd probably be
Oh,
trash
no, no.
talking.
Please,
too.
please feel free.
You should hear what these guys say.
I have zero place to trash talk. I haven't played it yet, so.
So we found a skeleton key. That's what we needed before for that locked door we saw down below. So, oop. Didn't see that sneaky bugger come up behind me.
I noticed you're not locking on too often.
Yeah, you can choose to lock on or not, depending on playstyle. I tend to prefer not to in narrow rooms, just because it makes it easier to get out of the way when you're getting cornered.
Right.
But yeah, you can choose to obviously lock on using the left trigger, and you'll focus on one enemy. You can switch targets using the D-pad, so you can switch pretty quickly between one and the other to change your lock-ons. So it's all about kind of player preference.
I lock on a ton because I'd rather take down one, get to the next. Like instead of like spreading the damage across like 10 dudes, I'd rather just take one out and then deal with 9, then 8, and so forth.
So the ranged weapon that you were using earlier, the revolver or whatever,
Yeah.
is that are those actually just kind of to separate yourself, give distance? They're not really going to do a lot of damage, or as you go through the game, do they?
It's used for a bunch of different things.
Okay.
One is for like certain puzzle solving. Another is obviously combat, but like
Right.
for like aerial creatures to like shoot them down.
Gotcha.
And it does a decent amount of damage. It doesn't do a huge amount, but it does a decent amount. You have a limited number of bullets on it. It
Right.
also builds up your wrath. So, for example, if you're at a distance to a large enemy and you're very close to having enough energy to call in ghouls again, you can actually use your pistol to just build
Get
that
that
wrath
wrath
level, just
Pro
that
tip
tiny,
right there.
There you go.
that tiny
go.
little bit.
Take notes, kids.
One of the things you saw right there is where you drop down. So like the dungeon and level design in this game is a lot better than the first, where Vigil offers you quick routes out, so you don't have to backtrack and do like the whole going back through. So you've probably noticed in the first zone, a lot of dungeons you like finish basically where you started.
Yeah, it's sort of circular, and you don't expect it at first.
Yeah.
To sort of be wrapped back around, and the end. It's almost you walk through the front door sometimes on some of them, and the end of the dungeon is right in front of you, and the real puzzle is how to get there.
Yep.
You know.
Exactly. And then also in the world with backtracking, there's a teleporting system basically. You can just go into the pause menu in the world map and teleport if you don't want to backtrack. But you're also incentivized to do that because we have the experience system. So
Right.
every enemy you kill, you're helping to level up. And also, we were talking about all that side content. You're not going to find that side content if you're not looking for it.
Right.
And pretty much every time you go through a place again, you discover something new. It's really cool. Whether it's a chest, whether it's a side dungeon, or whether it's
Random
you know,
loot drops from enemies you've encountered a million times.
Yeah,
even.
I call it. It's like it's a slot machine for me. 'Cause It's
Yeah.
like you just keep pulling that lever. You never know what's going to come up.
Yeah.
So here is where you'll start seeing a lot of Death's new traversal stuff if Simon doesn't die. That was close.
So we're trying to make our way up this tower at the moment. It's kind of a broken tower, so we're going to use the Death Grip. You actually get this in the first zone, so this is the first major gear item you get after the pistol. So you can use that for traversal as well as in combat, as we were using it earlier.
Again, you see a lot of elements of scale, which is really cool.
That would be where I jump off. And so here's the second soul that we were looking for, so we're getting close to the end of this quest for this guy. But of course, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do here is actually I'm going to use my Reaper form, because my gauge is full. I can transform into the Reaper, I mentioned that earlier. So you can lay down heavy damage on targets for a limited period of time. It's a nice way to deal with this large, heavy character in this enclosed space without...
Do you take damage still in Reaper form?
No,
or
you're completely invulnerable. You deal much more damage than you do in normal form as well.
Gotcha.
So for a short period of time, you can kind of lay waste to enemies, but down a boss completely on your own, it's...
And it takes a little while for it to build back up, right?
It does, yeah. You'll see now that I've used it, kind of the spiral-shaped icon to the left of my health bars. That's the Reaper form gauge. There's certain abilities and certain weapons that you can pick up that will... like build it faster, but that's got to fill completely before I'll be able to use it again.
If you had to pick one regen buff for one of the skills, or one of the attributes, what would it be?
For me, it's probably Wrath, because I like the Necromancer abilities, and I use them a lot in combat, so I'm always running out of abilities.
Mine's health, for sure.
Health, yeah.
Yeah, probably because I know the game too much to like go through too quickly. So I'm not like a high enough level. So I get tore apart every so
We were
often.
talking about that offline earlier, about how
Yeah.
it scales, especially during the New Game Plus. There's still going to be a challenge.
Right.
Yeah, you'll notice a lot, like when you get that first Forge Land zone, like there's some like content early on that you'll just go and just get, broken in half repeatedly, and you'll be like, that's just us teaching you, okay, you need
That's
to
a
go
little
play
bit
the game
slapping.
and then come back to this dude once you've leveled up a bit.
Classic RPG elements.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that in this game, obviously, and I think it's a lot of the stuff is what Vigil wanted in the first game. But
Yeah.
like we talked about, being a homegrown studio, brand new,
gotta prove
own
yourself
engine,
first, yeah.
there's only so much you can do in the first title out the door. But they've done a fantastic job of making this game really polished, tons of content. Kind of get lost in it.
And I can't say it enough. I just love the feel, the look, the whole thing. I mean,
Well, I think it's a true action adventure title, right? Like when you look at the action adventure space or the action space, it's becoming super set piecey.
Yeah.
A lot like shooter space where it's
Yeah.
set piece after set piece. Also, too, it's super photoreal. Like look at all the best games out there across gaming in general.
Yeah.
Everything's super photoreal. Like this is kind of like a old school game
Has its unique
where
art
it's
style, yeah.
really, really stylized, really, really interesting, not trying to, mimic real life. So I think it's really cool. I think it just harkens back to Vigil. Like Dave Adams said something to me before, which always has stuck, which is, we're studio gamers, we're making a game for gamers. It's
Yeah.
like for gamers, by gamers, and it totally shows. Like things in the game are things that they want to play and that they want to use. So this is a true representation of that.
So here you'll see a large enemy, and actually we're using our little
Who's
ghostly buddy to
your buddy,
tank
yeah.
for us. He'll attack enemies. He does have a health system, so he can die.
Okay.
But you can just summon him again. Obviously, when you're dead once, death isn't really a big problem. So he's really useful for guys like this, because this undead general, he's got a shield, so he's really hard to attack and actually does a lot of damage. So you want to get around behind him, which our friend there is letting me do pretty easily.
Down goes Frazier.
Okay, Okay, so our lift is stuck, so we've got to work out kind of how to get it going again. Helpfully enough, there's a bomb growth up there, so we just need to work out how to get up to it.
So this is where you're going to use your abilities, and you're going to use this dead dude.
So we're sending him, basically, we can command him to do things. We sent him to stand on that switch, which is going to open a gate for us. And there's a little bit of puzzle solving on this. There's different switches that do different things, so you have to work out which one to use at which point to get through there. There's going to be a lot of kind of puzzles involving all of the gear items you use in the game. So now that I've put him on that sort of pressure point over there, it's opened the gate that used to be here. So that's kind of opened up the way for us. So now we can head around to the other side of the room, which we couldn't have got to before.
Simon's obviously making this look super easy.
Yeah, I know if it was me, I'd be like, what am I doing?
There's a fair amount of looking around and just putting it all together. It's definitely has more of a cerebral element to it. You know, it's you're not walking down a corridor with like an arrow pointing over who you need to kill next.
Right,
This is more.
Speaking of looking around, check out the detail, the skulls and the bones inside that texture back there.
It's got a real catacomb look to it.
Yeah,
If any of you
that's
guys
great.
have seen kind of the Paris catacombs or any of those other sort of crazy early catacombs with like all the sculptures made out of human bone, there's a lot of those elements in the Kingdom of the Dead.
Death
So-
is right at home in this realm. That's for sure.
He definitely fits in. So here you go. We've managed to get up to this bomb growth. Just a really small puzzle.
And that's a growth of corruption. I should probably mention that. Basically, there's this corruption spreading throughout the Darksiders world. So it becomes another purpose of death in this game is to destroy the corruption. So basically, the corruption is destroying everything in the Darksiders universe, and it's all hanging in the balance.
Okay.
So that was a little piece of it.
So that's allowed us to get up to this door, so we can now get through and carry on towards our target, which is finding that
And this
soul.
is all still part of that mission where you're rebuilding the this whole area, basically, or have you done that
This
yet?
is still trying to get the souls for the Judicator. This is the
Gotcha.
final soul we're
so that
coming
he
up to
can
now.
to get him to do that.
So that
task for you.
he'll join you, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a third soul. You'll notice in Darksiders 2, there's a lot of threes. You do things
Three
in
is a
threes
magic
lot.
number.
I think it's a subliminal message from Vigil for like the green light of Darksiders 3.
The way but there are 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? So we got that looked.
Oh shit.
Ruh-roh.
So again, another mini boss fight. Again, not recycling kind of our combat. You're going to be fighting a lot of different types of enemy. It's not going to be the same guy that you fought 3 levels before.
How many types of enemies are there in the game? Do you guys have a number on that? Or?
Gee, that's a
A lot.
yeah, that's a hard question. There's a lot.
You should probably know that. There are a lot, though.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Not one I know. Every zone, all the enemies are unique to a zone. If they do have a returning type of enemy, like there were a couple in... There's a couple in the Undead Zone that return from the first zone, but they're dead zombie versions of those enemies, and they have completely different animations and attacks. So just because you know how to beat them in Zone 1 doesn't mean that you're going to have a clue about what to do in this one.
And just because you progress to Zone 2 or Zone 3, doesn't mean you won't see them again, because you're actually incentivized to go back. And you can go back to Zone 1 and do things that you never could do before, because in Zone 4, Zone 3, you got a new special ability that opens up new content for you.
So first phase of that fight was there was that skeleton hanging from the ceiling. He was basically summoning the little skeletons, so you had to kind of focus your attacks on him. We've now kind of summoned the Bone Giant, who's one of these kind of NOS characters that you see in this level. He's similar to the ice guy we fought in the first level, but he's, in terms of his attacks, but he does have differences. Like this guy can extend his head out on kind of his spine and hit you with it, which is...
So we summoned the Bone Giant, who is extending his head out.
yeah, you want to watch out for that.
Yeah.
Not going to say it.
I kind of get. Okay. I see where you're going with
Use
that.
your
Chris.
death grip on him. Show him how you can like chain to him, do cool stuff.
So you can put yourself
that's
into
nice.
a big enemy.
Yeah,
If it's a heavy enemy, you can pull yourself in.
I think this dude wanted to be a heavy enemy until you had your way with him.
Until you put his head back in its place.
Ooh, brutal.
Brutal buckler.
That's what we call the hammer.
Boom.
There are sweet spot attacks, so you'll notice sometimes when we're using things like heavy weapons, you'll get that kind of that purple glow around death, and he'll do a really devastating attack. They're kind of when you press the button at exactly the right spot in a combo, you pull off a sweet spot attack.
And so this is like a Book of the Dead page right here, one of the collectibles. And kind of like with those attacks, every zone pretty much has like kind of a hub town and NPCs. So you can buy combos and you can buy new moves, so you'll learn them as you go and you purchase them, you train. So if you press like XX, pause, XX, you'll do it right now. XX.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to you then. I sometimes zone out when Jeremy talks.
So see how it did like a Reaper finish and it did a really cool move. Here's another one.
That's the the Whirlwind. I just bought that one actually. I'm
both
excited.
Really, both of those are two of my favorites.
Both of those attacks were just using the X button, but it was pausing between different presses of it.
Right bumper, X throws like boomerang style. Yeah, which is cool for ranged attacks.
There's a huge amount of depth to the combat system. The way Vigil set it up is it's very simple to pick up, but it's really difficult to master, and there's a lot of levels of hidden depth which players will be able to unlock.
Easy to pick up, difficult to master. Sounds like skiing.
Oh, God, skiing. How
Sounds like
hard
a
is
lot
that?
of things, actually. What's the so as your character levels up, is there a max? Is there a cap? What's the max level you can get to in the game, or does that not exist?
Have we said that yet?
Or are we not allowed?
It's a top secret.
I don't think there's a huge amount of harm saying it.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
So
let's
it's going
say
to
it
be
right now.
in the game as it is right now. It's level 30 is the level cap.
Okay.
You will not hit that in a single playthrough of the game. That's impossible unless you were literally spending hours grinding little enemies. I don't think there's any
Challenge
feasible way of.
Unless you were
Don't tell
making,
Chris it's impossible.
unless
He
you were
will
making
attempt.
Love Not Warcraft and just killing boars in the forest.
Yeah, there's so you're going to have to play through on a New Game Plus to kind of reach that level. So level 30 at the moment, you still won't be able to buy all of the abilities in the game at level 30. There's going to be stuff you're not going to have. The idea is we wanted players to specialize and to be able to build their own death. So you kind of choose if you want to focus on the Necromancer caster tree or the melee Harbinger tree,
And you can respec for the simple low price of 1,000 gilt, right?
you can, and there is even an achievement for doing that.
Ooh,
Respect yourself.
exclusive info right here,
So-
folks. That's awesome. That's great.
So yeah, that's the end of
Oh,
the
this New Game
Adjudicators.
Plus talk is good. It's a good transition segue to Crucible.
Yeah, so we mentioned New Game Plus. We mentioned kind of the things players have got to do when they finish the main game. But another little surprise that we had for players is we have an arena mode, which we've put in Darksiders 2, which is called the Crucible. So this is something that we announced this Monday, so it's brand new. And so we're going to show you guys a little bit of it for the first time today.
The first time today to the world.
Oh yeah, live.
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 That is.
Here.
Here.
Let me tweet that real quick.
So the world can watch me die in the Crucible. So
Okay. Somebody's
I've
gonna do
pre-set up a character for this. Basically, the Crucible, you can carry on playing sort of after you finish the main game. Every 5 waves you play, you're going to be given the option of taking the loot and leaving or carrying on, and there's 100 waves total. The challenge is really extreme when you get towards the later waves, and you're going to be fighting 2 or 3 mini-bosses at a time. So I've kind of decked out decked out Death, given him a load of different abilities, and hopefully we'll show you some of the early waves of this mode so we don't spoil anything.
Right.
Gotcha.
Well, just a little. We can
You need to
spoil
beat.
just a little.
You need to beat the first zone just to even unlock this, right?
Yeah, so you'll unlock the Crucible when you finish the Forged Lands. You'll get a message in your in-game mail system, which is called the Tome system, and it will invite you to this arena, the Crucible.
You can also give friends loot through the tome system, which is pretty cool.
There's a Chivo for that
Cool.
as well, I do believe.
So once you've unlocked the Crucible, you'll be able to do waves 1 to 25. You won't be able to go any further than that at that stage. When you finish the Dead Plains, the second zone, you'll unlock zones 25 to 50. Waves 25 to 50. And then when you finish the full game, you'll unlock 50 to 75. The last 25 waves you won't unlock until you reach level 25, which most players won't do in a single playthrough. So
Okay.
to unlock all of Crucible and to complete all of Crucible, you need to be close to level 30.
And
So-
have a lot of free time.
It really is the final challenge.
So, I mean, I don't want to have to spell it out for people out there in the audience, but that is a lot of game for $60.
Yeah, that's...
I'm just gonna,
wow.
Just gonna put it out there. It's a whole lot of replay value.
So every wave is different. Every wave you're going to be challenged by a number of enemies. The way you finish the wave is you kill all the enemies in the arena, the next wave will start. So early waves are pretty easy. It's just to get you into the flow of things. Also bearing in mind that some players might come in at level 15 at the start, so their damage level is going to be...
Is there anything batshit crazy, like don't take any damage on this wave?
There aren't specifics on that, but there are there's a stat tree which basically records things like how fast you complete waves, how many waves you complete, and how many waves you complete without dying, etc., etc. So players can take on that challenge and sort of try and compete on global leaderboards to see who's the quickest or who's the best. To finish things. So you'll see as each wave's going up, we're getting slightly more difficult enemies. Again, they're still pretty basic. Also, all the guys in these early waves are based on the first zone. As you move through the game and unlock the later waves, they're going to be based on later zones. So you're going to see pretty much every enemy type you see in the game in this mode, including a lot of the bosses, sometimes multiple bosses at a time.
Okay, wow.
Which is a lot of fun. Like that bone giant guy I just fought that you saw a minute ago.
Right.
There's one wave where you fight 2 of those guys plus another mini-boss all at the same time.
Wow. So it gets very difficult.
It gets pretty serious towards the end. You've got to be a pretty decent player to get through Crucible.
No, I don't know if you... I'm sorry if you said this before, but is this something that's unlocked from the onset, or do you have to beat the game first?
No, you unlock it when you finish. You unlock it when you finish the first zone, you won't have all waves available to you until you reach level 25 and finish the main game.
Gotcha. Okay.
So really, it's something that players can start playing fairly early on, but they won't be able to play through until they finish the main story.
Is it a good way to like train combat skills and stuff like that? Obviously, I'm assuming get familiar with your moves and.
It's a really great way to try out new builds. It's a great way to try out new abilities. It's a good challenge for your combat abilities as well. And it's a really great leveler for players. I mean, with a single-player game like Darksiders, there's very little way to prove to your friends who's better at a game.
Yeah.
But with leaderboards and with the Crucible, you can actually compete and you can see how fast you completed it. You can use the leaderboards to look at friends only, or you can do globally. So you'll be able to see who finished it the fastest, who killed the most enemies, etc., etc. There's a lot of stat tracking which ties into this, which will be fun for players.
Gotta have those bragging
forward.
rights in there, so that's awesome. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, I know you just made the announcement, and perhaps this question is premature, but is this something we can expect some continued support for in terms of DLC?
So we're going to have, we haven't announced any plans
Good transition into DLC.
We haven't announced a lot of
plan.
plans on those just yet, but we are definitely going to be supporting this game. We are going to have DLC. Obviously, the first game didn't have anything. This game's built
In fact,
to be able
if
to
you
have
go out
updates.
and pre-order today, you're immediately upgraded to the limited edition and get our first drop called Argol's Tomb absolutely free.
Today.
If you go out and pre-order today,
Right
tomorrow,
now.
get out there, pre-order.
Basically, any pre-order is getting the limited edition SKU as an upgrade. So those guys are getting a DLC pack for free. Argol's Tomb is a single player, and it's actually it's an additional area, an additional zone, additional dungeons that you're kind of playing through. So it's a pretty substantial piece of DLC content, and it's free for anyone who's pre-ordered.
Between now and Monday at midnight, basically, right?
Pretty much, yeah. When the midnight store openings happen on Monday, yeah. I think any time before that counts as a pre-order. So
Yeah. So that's the 14th is the street date.
Yeah,
It is.
14th
Next Tuesday.
Finally upon us.
in North America.
In North America.
The European release is
Just a week later.
sort of early the next week. So. But yeah, as you were asking a question about this, obviously this is a great way to. This is a great way to carry on playing after you finish the main game. It's an additional challenge. It's probably the highest level challenge that's in the game at this stage. There's a couple of other side content missions, things like the Arbiter's Maze, which again are going to be very challenging, and most players probably won't finish prior to the main game. But Crucible should carry players over until the release of Argol's Tomb, which will be, as Jeremy mentioned, free for anyone who pre-orders.
Right. Because you want the story of the game to be challenging, but you want people to finish it and experience it. Whereas this, you know, there's a nice sadomasochist pleasure in just grinding it out to see how far you can
It's
get.
cool too. Like if you're like, you know, you're stuck in a dungeon and on a puzzle, and you don't want to cheat and go to YouTube or use a strat guide, you can just kind of get a breath of fresh air.
Take a
Come
breather,
over
but
here, take
you're
out
still
your
leveling up
frustration
your
on
guy?
everyone.
You don't earn experience in the
Okay.
Crucible, but you do earn loot. So every 5 waves, the Arena Master Kargon's going to teleport back in, and he's going to give the player a choice. He's basically going to give you the choice of taking the loot that you've earned so far and leaving, or carrying on. So if you carry on, you're gambling and you'll get more loot and better loot with each wave. But if you die in the Crucible, you lose everything. You basically will continue with nothing and no progress. So it's a gamble. Players have to really be sure before they decide to take that challenge, those next 5 waves, because if they don't get through them, they're leaving with nothing.
So it sounds like Darksiders 2 teaches good life lessons too.
Gambling's bad, kids. But yes, it's a really fun mode. It's something in the office we love. We're still challenging ourselves, and it can be brutally difficult. So it's a lot of fun.
That's a good quick point, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably
so,
we've
yeah.
shown a decent
We have
amount of
to.
Crucible without spoiling too much
Yeah,
of
that
it.
was.
You're going
was
to be playing
fantastic.
through that yourself soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll
so.
be playing for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming in, guys.
Oh,
this
thank
has
you
been.
for-
And once again, release date is on the 4th.
This coming Tuesday.
14th.
Tuesday.
Yes, Tuesday.
Tuesday. Oh, yeah.
Darksiders
14th.
2. Awesome.
Limited edition upgrade for anybody that pre-orders
go.
now.
Get out there.
Drop, right?
Correct.
All the retailers have special incentives, so get what you want.
So
have
check it
fun.
out.
And we'll see you online on Tuesday, yeah?
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks again, Simon. Thanks again, Jeremy. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Darksiders 2, guys. If that doesn't pump you up, I don't know what will.
what
So,
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're still live, so
still
we're just
live.
going to keep rolling. So
Okay.
you guys can.
It's a high-class board you got there.
Yeah, you like this? This is a lot of production value. It took me a while to write
Plus,
these out.
New Games
So
Plus.
yeah, so obviously, guys, we just got done with a really cool exclusive first look at Darksiders 2. We're gonna move on. I can't even see the board right now. We're gonna move on to Blaster. So yeah, basically what we do on this stream is we play anything that we want to that's been released in the last week.
Cool.
It's kind of how it works. So we're gonna hit some Xbox indie games up right now, and that's how we'll do it.
Sweet.
So.
Have fun.
All right, guys.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool, thanks
a lot.
guys.
And let
Awesome.
me
Good to see you guys in the Crucible.
get that.
Hell yeah.
Get that going.
Yeah, we'll have to swap tags with you guys, and
Yeah, we will. Are you guys
we can
getting out of
take
here
the,
right
take
now?
the challenge.
I might actually.
Get my Xbox going.
The rare business card on me. Limited edition. This one's the rookie card. No.
Your email's on there?
Yeah.
we'll drop your tags.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, we can challenge each other on the Crucible.
I actually produce our in-house strategy show, our weekly strategy show.
Okay.
So this week's episode is on Darksiders 2, coincidentally.
If it's useful for you, actually, I can.
Get them out. Get the log in.
Let's go. Let's go.
Like the Prima Guide, we got them into the office
Are-
early versions. So
Yeah,
probably,
I mean-
if you're struggling to find anything, that might be.
That would definitely help. That's why I was asking you earlier about the legendary stuff, because I think profiling that for this early one might be good, you know. But yeah, drop me a
Can you
line.
switch that for me? Yeah.
I'll send you over. I've also got a list of locations where stuff is by like what area location. So
Okay.
because some of those stone bites, Book of the Dead's are.
It's a little, yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love doing that as a gamer, but when I'm trying to race against the deadline, it certainly helps having a leg up from time to time.
Thanks again, guys. That was awesome. That was a great
Yeah,
preview.
that was great.
All right. Just did that.
Still running that
Yep.
Ovaltine spot.
Thank you. What's up?
Still running that Ovaltine spot.
What Ovaltine spot is that? Oh yeah, we're just muted right now, so we're good. All right.
Beer 30?
Should be good. You guys deserve it. All right.
It's almost be a 45 when we need to get moving.
I think we should just get drunk now. Call it a
Simon,
day.
Jeremy, I'm gonna let you guys wrap up. Cool.
Cheers,
All right,
man.
guys.
Yeah, drop me a line
Pleasure.
and we'll be
Sure.
in touch, man. Thanks a lot.
All right.
All righty. See you guys later. Thanks again.
Thanks, fellas.
See you. All right. Getting myself pumped up. We got some people coming in. Okay, where's Sark? I know. Where is Sark? Sark right now is really, first of all, he's under the weather. I'm trying to sit in the middle right here. Sark is under the weather right now, but he's doing a Halo thing as well. So, yeah, we're going to have some other people coming in. I think Ricky's going to come in and play with me a little bit. My senior producer, Juan, will be coming in. But we're going to start going through these games. Hope you guys enjoyed the Darksiders 2 preview, exclusive first look stuff. I'm extremely excited for the game. Like I said, I didn't play the first one, but my God, that looks amazing. We're going to play Blaster. So first of all, on this board, there is a shit ton of indie titles right now. There's a lot. We've got probably, I think, like 10 of these are indie